The boardroom fell silent when the homeless-looking man from the lobby dropped a black founder's card onto the mahogany table. The executives had just finished mocking him. Security was dragging his crying daughter toward the exit. The CEO had personally ordered him removed for disrupting the professional environment. Nobody recognized the wrinkled coat. Nobody saw past the worn shoes. They didn't know they'd just humiliated the billionaire founder who disappeared 5 years ago. The man who still owned everything they thought was theirs. If you want to see how this single father took back his empire, stay until the end. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let's begin. Ryan Mercer's daughter wouldn't let go of his hand. That was the first thing Victoria Hale noticed when she glanced down from the executive floor. A grown man in a threadbare coat standing in the marble lobby of Nexora Energy headquarters, fingers intertwined with a small girl who couldn't have been older than 6. The child wore a pink backpack decorated with butterflies. The man wore exhaustion like a second skin. Victoria turned away. She had a board meeting in 12 minutes and a merger presentation that would determine whether Nexora Energy expanded into 3 new markets or stagnated for another fiscal year. She didn't have time for whatever this was. "Ma'am, should we call security?" Her assistant Jennifer stood at her elbow with a tablet, her voice dropping to a concerned whisper. "That man's been down there for almost 20 minutes. He doesn't have an appointment." Victoria glanced back through the glass wall of her corner office. The man was crouching now, eye level with his daughter, saying something that made the little girl nod seriously. He straightened up, and Victoria caught a glimpse of his face. Unshaven, tired, but somehow composed, like someone who'd learned to carry weight that should have broken him. "Who is he?" Jennifer tapped her tablet. "No ID on file. Front desk says he asked to speak with whoever's running things now. Wouldn't give his name." "Then yes. Call security. Politely." Victoria checked her watch. "And tell Victor I'm on my way to the boardroom." She didn't look back as she left her office. Didn't see the way the man's jaw tightened when 2 security guards approached. Didn't hear the little girl ask, "Daddy, why do they look angry?" The boardroom on the 42nd floor was all glass and steel and manufactured authority. Victor Kane sat at the head of the table, his silver hair perfectly styled, his smile perfectly calibrated. He'd been COO for 6 years, longer than Victoria had been CEO. Some days she wondered if he resented reporting to someone younger. Most days she was too busy to care. "Victoria, punctual as always." Victor gestured to the chair beside him. "Daniel's running the numbers. We should be ready to present in 5. Daniel Ross looked up from his laptop, glasses reflecting the glow of spreadsheets. CFO, brilliant with money, terrible with people. He nodded at Victoria without smiling. "Stock's up 3% since yesterday," Daniel said. "If we announce the Titan merger today, we're projecting a jump to We're not announcing today." Victoria set her briefcase down. "I want another week to review the environmental impact assessments." Victor's smile didn't change, but something behind his eyes went cold. "We've reviewed them twice. The board's ready to vote. Delaying sends the wrong message. Rushing sends a worse one." "Victoria." Victor leaned forward, his voice dropping into that paternal register he used when he wanted to sound reasonable. "I understand you want to be thorough. It's admirable. But Titan Energy isn't going to wait forever, and if we don't move now, we risk losing the best acquisition offer we've seen in 5 years. Then they'll wait." Victoria met his eyes. "Or they won't. Either way, I'm not signing off on a merger until I'm certain it aligns with our values." Daniel made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Our values? We're an energy company, not a charity." "We're both." Victoria opened her briefcase, pulling out the folder she'd been reviewing since 4 that morning. Nexora was founded on the principle that clean energy should be accessible, not just profitable. If this merger compromises that, The founder's been gone for 5 years, Victor interrupted. "And with all due respect, the world has changed. The market has changed. We can honor the past without being imprisoned by it." Victoria wanted to argue, wanted to slam the folder down and remind Victor that she'd been hired specifically because the board believed she'd protect Nexora's mission, not dilute it. But Jennifer appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "Ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a situation in the lobby." Victor waved dismissively. "We're in the middle of—" "It's escalating," Jennifer said. Security's involved. I thought you should know. Victoria stood. I'll handle it. Start without me. She took the elevator down, expecting a protester or a disgruntled former employee. What she found was chaos barely contained behind a veneer of corporate politeness. Two security guards flanked the man in the worn coat. The little girl was crying now, clutching her father's leg while a small crowd of employees formed a half circle at a safe distance, their phones out, recording. The receptionist, Margaret, 63, been with the company since the beginning, stood between the guards and the man, her arms spread like she was shielding him. This is inappropriate, one of the guards was saying. Sir, you need to leave voluntarily, or we'll have to escort you out. I'm not causing trouble, the man said. His voice was quiet, strained. I just need to speak with someone in charge. You don't have an appointment. You don't have clearance. That means you don't belong here. Please, the little girl's voice cracked. We just want to talk. Victoria descended the last 3 steps, and her heels clicked against marble. The crowd parted. The guard straightened. The man looked up, and for a second, just a flash, Victoria thought she saw something familiar in his face. Something she couldn't place. What's the problem? She asked. The first guard, Stevens, gestured toward the man. Unauthorized individual refusing to leave the premises. We've asked 3 times. He won't comply. Victoria studied the man. Up close, he looked worse than he had from her office window. His coat was more than worn. It was frayed at the cuffs, missing a button. His jeans had a patch on one knee, but his eyes were steady, and he was holding his daughter with a gentleness that made Victoria's chest tighten inexplicably. I'm Victoria Hale, CEO. You wanted to speak with someone in charge? Yes. The man shifted, keeping his body between Victoria and his daughter. Protective. I need to discuss some internal matters, financial discrepancies. It's urgent. Then make an appointment through proper channels. I tried. I was told the executive team doesn't take meetings with external consultants without a referral. Victoria frowned. You're a consultant. Not exactly. Then what exactly are you? Before he could answer, a new voice cut through the lobby. Oh, this is Rich. Daniel Ross stepped out of the elevator, Victor beside him. They must have followed her down. Daniel was smirking, the way he did when he'd found an accounting error that saved the company money. Victor just looked annoyed. Seriously? Daniel walked closer, his expensive shoes clicking. You interrupted our meeting for this? Victoria, the man's clearly homeless. Look at him. I'm not homeless, the man said quietly. Right. You just dress like you sleep in your car. Daniel laughed. It wasn't a kind sound. Let me guess. You've got some brilliant investment opportunity you want to pitch? Some revolutionary energy idea that'll change the world? The little girl pressed her face against her father's leg, crying harder. That's enough, Victoria said. But Daniel was on a roll. He crouched down, addressing the child directly. Hey, sweetie, does Daddy drag you to a lot of office buildings? Is this how he spends his time instead of getting a real job? Daniel, Victoria's voice sharpened. Step back. Why? I'm just asking questions. If this guy's got legitimate business, he can articulate it without hiding behind a kid. The man's jaw clenched. His hand tightened around his daughter's. And when he spoke, his voice was still quiet. But there was something underneath it now. Something hard. Her name is Ellie, and you don't get to talk to her like that. I'll talk however I want. This is private property. You're trespassing. Daniel straightened up, brushing off his knees like he'd touched something dirty. Victoria, call the cops. Let them deal with this. Margaret, the receptionist, stepped forward. Mr. Ross, that's not necessary. Did I ask for your opinion, Margaret? The old woman flinched. Victor put a hand on Daniel's shoulder, a gesture that looked conciliatory but wasn't. Daniel's right. We can't have random people walking in off the street making accusations. It sets a bad precedent. Victoria felt something twist in her stomach. This was wrong. The whole scene felt wrong. But Daniel and Victor were technically correct. Protocol existed for a reason. Security existed for a reason. She looked at the man again. I'm sorry, but if you can't provide credentials or a legitimate reason for being here, I have to ask you to leave. You want a legitimate reason? The man's voice was still quiet, still controlled, but his eyes burned. How about the fact that this company was built to help people, and now it's being gutted from the inside by people who only care about profit margins. That's a hell of an accusation, Victor said coldly. It's the truth. Prove it. Give me 5 minutes in a room with your financial records, and I will. Daniel laughed outright. Oh, this keeps getting better. You want access to confidential corporate documents? What are you, a spy? A corporate saboteur? I'm someone who knows what Nexora used to stand for. Used to, past tense. Victor folded his arms. This company has evolved. It's grown. If you knew anything about business, you'd understand that growth requires adaptation. Adaptation, the man repeated. Is that what you call abandoning the rural hospital contracts? Cutting funding to the small-town energy projects? Selling research data to the highest bidder? Victoria went still. How do you know about those projects? The man met her eyes. Because I watched them being built. Before Victoria could respond, Ellie's small voice cut through the tension. Daddy, I'm scared. The man immediately crouched, pulling his daughter close, whispering something in her ear. His whole body shifted, from confrontational to gentle in a heartbeat. And Victoria felt something crack in her chest, some wall she'd built that kept emotion separate from business. This wasn't protocol. This wasn't corporate policy. This was a father and his terrified daughter being humiliated in a lobby by men in expensive suits. Everyone stop! Victoria's voice came out sharper than she intended. Stevens, Carter, stand down. Ma'am? Stevens looked confused. I said stand down. This man hasn't threatened anyone. He hasn't damaged property. He's asked for a conversation. She turned to Daniel and Victor. And both of you need to return to the boardroom. Now. Daniel's smirk faded. You're joking. Do I look like I'm joking? Victoria, this is a mistake, Victor said, his voice low and warning. You're letting emotion cloud your judgment. My judgment is fine. Yours is what I'm questioning right now. She stepped between the security guards and the man. Give me 5 minutes. If his claims are baseless, I'll personally ensure he leaves. But I will not have people treated like this in our building. Victor's expression went flat. Noted. He and Daniel walked back toward the elevator, but not before Daniel shot the man one last contemptuous look. The crowd of employees slowly dispersed, disappointed the show was over. Margaret returned to her desk, but she gave Victoria a small, approving nod. Victoria turned back to the man. You've got your 5 minutes. Conference room 2. Let's go. The man stood, still holding Ellie's hand. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Conference room 2 was small, windowless, designed for insurance adjusters and vendor negotiations. Victoria gestured to the chairs. The man helped Ellie into one, then took the seat beside her. Victoria sat across from them, arms folded. Talk, she said. The man was quiet for a moment, studying her. Then he said, Your CFO is embezzling funds through falsified vendor contracts. Your COO is negotiating a sale to Titan Energy that undervalues Nexora by 40% and includes severance packages for himself and 3 other executives that total $80 million. Victoria's blood went cold. That's impossible. It's documented. Encrypted emails, offshore accounts, shell corporations designed to look like legitimate energy suppliers. The man pulled a flash drive from his coat pocket and set it on the table. It's all here. Where did you get this? I have my sources. That's not an answer. It's the only one I'm giving right now. Victoria stared at the flash drive like it might explode. If what you're saying is true, and that's a massive if, why bring it to me? Why not go to the authorities? Because I wanted to give you a chance to fix this internally first. Why would you care? The man's expression softened. Because this company used to mean something. It used to stand for something, and I don't want to watch that disappear. Ellie tugged on her father's sleeve. Daddy, can I have my coloring book? Yeah, sweetheart. He pulled a small backpack off Ellie's shoulders and handed her a battered coloring book and a box of crayons. She immediately started coloring, her earlier tears forgotten. Victoria watched the girl, then looked back at the man. You still haven't told me who you are. Does it matter? Yes. Why? Because I need to know if I can trust you. The man smiled, but it was sad. Trust. That's a funny word coming from someone who just let her executives humiliate a child in her own lobby. Victoria flinched. I stopped it. You let it start. I didn't know it. You saw us standing there for 20 minutes. You sent security instead of coming down yourself. You made a choice. I was in a meeting. There's always a meeting. The man leaned forward. Do you know what this company was built on, Miss Hale? It wasn't quarterly earnings or stock projections. It was built on the idea that energy is a right, not a privilege. That small towns and rural hospitals and underserved communities deserve the same access to clean power as wealthy suburbs. I know the mission statement. Do you believe it? Victoria opened her mouth, closed it. The question was simple, but the answer felt impossible. I believe in sustainable business, she finally said. I believe in growth that doesn't compromise ethics. But I also believe that a company can't help anyone if it's bankrupt. Is that what Victor tells you? That you have to choose between principles and survival? He tells me the market is competitive, that we're fighting against corporations 10 times our size, that if we don't adapt, we die. And selling out to Titan Energy is adaptation? It's a merger, a partnership. It's a takeover. The man's voice hardened. Titan will absorb Nexora, strip it for parts, and shut down every project that doesn't turn an immediate profit. The rural contracts will be the first to go. The hospital partnerships will be next. Within 2 years, everything that made Nexora different will be gone. You don't know that. I do. He tapped his flash drive. It's in the contract, buried in subsection 7 of the operational restructuring clause. Titan gets to terminate any project they deem financially non-viable within 18 months of acquisition. No board approval required. Victoria stared at him. How do you know what's in the contract? Because I've read it. That contract is confidential. Only 5 people have access to the full document. The man didn't answer. Victoria's mind raced. Victor had assured her the merger protected Nexora's core programs. Daniel had shown her projections proving the partnership would expand their humanitarian efforts, not reduce them. But if what this man was saying was true, I need to verify this, she said quietly. Then verify it. It'll take time. Days, maybe. I'll need to involve the legal team, the board. You don't have days. The man's voice was urgent now. The board votes on the merger in 72 hours. Once it's approved, it's done. No reversal, no second chances. Then what do you expect me to do? Look at the flash drive. Tonight, alone. Don't tell Victor. Don't tell Daniel. Don't tell anyone until you've seen what's there. Victoria picked up the flash drive. It was small, black, anonymous. It felt heavy in her hand. If this is some kind of scam, it's not. If you're trying to manipulate me, I'm trying to save a company that still has a chance to be what it was supposed to be. Ellie looked up from her coloring book. Daddy, I finished The Butterfly. The man's whole face changed. He leaned over, studying the page with exaggerated seriousness. That's beautiful, Ellie Bell. Best butterfly I've ever seen. Can we go home now? Soon, sweetheart. Just a few more minutes. Victoria watched them, father and daughter. She thought about the way Daniel had mocked them, the way Victor had dismissed them, the way she'd almost done the same. What's your name? She asked quietly. The man looked up. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then he said, It doesn't matter yet. When will it matter? When you decide what kind of CEO you want to be. He stood, helping Ellie pack up her crayons. Victoria stood too, still holding the flash drive. I'll look at this tonight, she said. But if it's nothing, if you've wasted my time, it's not nothing. The man met her eyes. And you know it. You felt it. The way things have changed. The way decisions get made without you. The way Victor and Daniel exchange looks when you push back on something. Victoria's throat tightened. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. He took Ellie's hand and walked toward the door, but before he left, he turned back. This company was built by 2 people who believed they could change the world, he said quietly. One of them is gone. The other one is trying to remember why he cared in the first place. Don't let their work die because you were too afraid to fight for it. Then he was gone, and Victoria was alone in the conference room, holding a flash drive that felt like a bomb. She returned to her office and locked the door, opened her laptop, inserted the flash drive with hands that shook slightly. The files were extensive: spreadsheets, email chains, scanned documents, bank statements, everything organized with meticulous care. Victoria started reading. 2 hours later, she was still reading. 4 hours later, she'd thrown up in her private bathroom. 6 hours later, Jennifer knocked on her door, worried because Victoria had missed 3 meetings and wasn't answering her phone. "I'm fine," Victoria called through the door. "Cancel everything tomorrow. I need the day to work on something." "Is everything okay?" "No, but it will be." She worked through the night, cross-referenced documents, verified signatures, traced money through layered corporations until she found where it ended up. And with every piece of evidence, she felt something inside her crack wider. Victor Kane had been systematically embezzling from Nixora for 3 years. Small amounts at first, then larger. He'd created fake vendors, approved fraudulent contracts, and routed payments into accounts he controlled through shell companies registered in the Cayman Islands. Total theft, $42 million. Daniel Ross had helped him. Falsified reports, adjusted budgets, made the missing money invisible to auditors and board members. In exchange, Victor had promised Daniel a VP position at Titan Energy after the merger, plus a $15 million bonus. But the merger itself was the real crime. Titan Energy was buying Nixora for $3 billion. Market analysts had valued the company at $5 billion. The difference, $2 billion, was being absorbed by Nixora's shareholders. Except most shareholders didn't know they were being undercut, because Victor had manipulated the valuation reports to make $3 billion look fair. And buried in the contract, exactly where the mysterious man had said it would be, was the clause that would kill every humanitarian project Nixora had ever launched. Victoria sat back in her chair staring at the ceiling. She thought about the past 3 years, the way Victor had mentored her, the way he'd guided her through board politics and shareholder demands, the way he'd told her she was doing a great job while slowly dismantling everything she thought she was protecting. She'd been complicit, not intentionally, but complicit all the same. Her phone buzzed, a text from Victor. "Board meeting 9 a.m. tomorrow. Final merger vote. Be ready to celebrate." Victoria looked at the flash drive. Then she picked up her phone and dialed a number she hadn't called in 2 years. "This is Victoria Hale," she said when someone answered. "I need to speak with Richard Chen. Yes, I know it's 2 a.m. Tell him it's urgent. Tell him Nixora is about to implode, and I need his help to stop it." Richard Chen was the board chairman, 71 years old, semi-retired. He'd hired Victoria personally, told her she reminded him of the founders. She'd always thought it was a compliment. Now she wondered if it was a warning. He answered on the second ring. "Victoria, what's wrong?" "Everything, sir. Everything is wrong." She spent an hour explaining, sent him copies of the files, listened to his silence grow heavier as he read. Finally, he said, "Who gave you this information?" "I don't know. A man came to the office today. He wouldn't give his name." "What did he look like?" Victoria described him, the worn coat, the tired eyes, the little girl. Richard was quiet for a long time. Then he said very softly, "Oh my God." "Sir?" "Victoria, I'm getting on a plane. Don't do anything until I arrive. Don't confront Victor. Don't talk to Daniel. Don't tell anyone what you know." "Why? We have evidence. We should—" "Because you don't understand what's happening yet." Richard's voice was shaking. "That man, the one who gave you the flash drive, did he have dark hair, tired eyes? Looked like he hadn't slept in years." "Yes." "And the girl, 6 years old, blonde?" "Yes, her name is Ellie." Richard made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. "Of course it is." "Sir, I don't understand." "That man, Victoria, that was Ryan Mercer." The name hit her like a physical blow. Ryan Mercer, the founder, the billionaire who'd vanished 5 years ago after his wife died, the man whose company she'd been running without ever meeting him. "That's impossible," Victoria whispered. "Ryan Mercer is... He's what? Dead? Retired? Living on a private island somewhere?" Richard's voice was bitter. "No, he's been raising his daughter, alone, trying to give her a normal life while the company his wife died building was stolen piece by piece." "How do you know?" "Because I'm one of 3 people who stayed in contact with him. He made me promise not to tell anyone where he was. He wanted Ellie to grow up without cameras and reporters and board meetings. He wanted her to have the childhood he and Amelia never got." Victoria's mind reeled. "Then why come back now?" "Because someone warned him. Someone inside the company. told him what Victor was planning, and Ryan decided his daughter needed a future worth inheriting more than she needed anonymity. Why didn't he just call you? Why come to the office like that? Because he wanted to see what Nexora had become. He wanted to see the people running it. He wanted to know if it was worth saving. Victoria thought about the lobby, the security guards, Daniel's mocking, Victor's dismissal. "We failed him," she whispered. "Yes. What do I do?" "Wait for me. I'll be there by morning. We'll handle this together." Richard paused. "And Victoria, when you see Ryan again, and you will see him again, apologize. Because that man just handed you evidence that could destroy the criminals who've been stealing from him for years, and he did it knowing you might not believe him. He did it knowing you might side with Victor instead. He trusted you anyway." "Why?" "Because Amelia would have." The line went dead. Victoria sat in her dark office, hands shaking, staring at the flash drive. Somewhere in Chicago, a single father was putting his daughter to bed, reading her a story, kissing her forehead, pretending that today hadn't been the hardest thing he'd done in years. And tomorrow, he'd come back. Because tomorrow, everything would change. Victoria opened her laptop and started composing an email to the entire board. Not the version Victor expected. The real version. The one that started with, "I need to inform you of a credible threat of executive fraud and corporate misconduct that requires immediate investigation." She hit send at 4:47 a.m. At 5 a.m., her phone started ringing. The war had begun. The first call came from board member Patricia Whitmore at 5:03 a.m. Victoria's phone vibrated against her desk, and she stared at the name on the screen for 3 rings before answering. "Tell me this is a joke." Patricia's voice was razor sharp despite the early hour. "Tell me you didn't just accuse our COO and CFO of fraud in an email to the entire board." "I can't tell you that." "Victoria, do you understand what you've done? The merger vote is in," a pause, presumably to check the time, "less than 4 hours. The press is already gathering. Titan's executives are flying in, and you just detonated a bomb." Victoria's hand tightened around her phone. "The bomb was already there. I just made sure everyone could see it." "Based on what? Anonymous evidence from a stranger?" "Based on 3 years of falsified financial reports. Based on $42 million in embezzled funds. Based on a merger contract designed to gut everything Nexora was built to accomplish." Victoria's voice didn't shake. She was surprised by that. "Patricia, I sent you the files. Look at them." "I am looking at them. Do you know what I see? A lot of numbers that could mean anything, contracts that might be legitimate, emails that could be taken out of context." "They're not out of context." "You don't know that. You've had these files for what, 12 hours? You're not a forensic accountant. You're not a lawyer. You're a CEO who's about to destroy her own company based on information from someone who wouldn't even give you his name." Victoria closed her eyes. "His name is Ryan Mercer." Silence. Then Patricia said very quietly, "That's not possible." Richard confirmed it. "Richard Chen, you called Richard? He's on his way here now." Another silence, longer this time. Victoria heard Patricia breathing on the other end of the line. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted, still sharp, but wary now. "If Ryan Mercer is really back, why didn't he come through official channels? Why the drama? Why show up looking like what? Like someone who's been raising a child alone for 5 years? Like someone who doesn't care about appearances anymore?" Victoria stood up, pacing to her window. Dawn was breaking over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of gray and pale orange. "He came back because his company is being stolen, Patricia, and we didn't recognize him. I didn't recognize him. None of us would have. He's been gone since his wife died." Victoria's voice softened. "Since Amelia died, and he disappeared to take care of their daughter. We all assumed he'd abandoned Nexora, that he didn't care anymore, but he was just trying to be a father." Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Victor's going to fight this. You know that, right? He's not going to roll over and confess. He'll say the evidence is fabricated. He'll say Ryan is mentally unstable. He'll drag this out in court for years if he has to. Let him try." Victoria. "I'm done, Patricia. I'm done pretending things are fine when they're not. I'm done letting corrupt men make decisions because it's easier than fighting them. I'm done being the kind of CEO who looks the other way. She pressed her forehead against the cool glass. If you want to vote me out for this, go ahead. But I'm not backing down. Patricia exhaled slowly. I'm not voting you out. I'm just trying to prepare you for what's coming, because it's going to get ugly. I know. Do you? Because this isn't just about Victor and Daniel anymore. This is about everyone who enabled them. Everyone who signed off on those budgets without asking questions. Everyone who… Patricia stopped. I signed off on some of those budgets. I know. I didn't know they were fake. I trusted the numbers. So did I. Victoria turned away from the window. That's why we're going to fix this, together, before it's too late. Patricia was quiet again. Then she said, I'll make some calls. We need at least 6 board members on our side before the meeting. I can get 3 for sure. Maybe 4. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We might both be unemployed by noon. The line went dead. Victoria set her phone down and walked to her private bathroom. She looked terrible. Hair falling out of its clip, makeup smudged under her eyes, blouse wrinkled from wearing it for 20 hours straight. She splashed cold water on her face and tried to remember the last time she'd eaten. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Victor. Need to talk. Urgent. Come to my office. Victoria stared at the message. Part of her wanted to ignore it. Part of her wanted to march up to his office and throw the flash drive at his face. But Richard had told her to wait. Don't confront Victor. Don't give him time to prepare. She texted back. In back-to-back calls. See you at the board meeting. His response came immediately. This can't wait. It'll have to. She put her phone on silent and went back to her desk. The evidence was still there, spread across 3 monitors. She'd been through it twice now, and every time she found something new. A contract signed with a vendor that didn't exist. A payment routed through a company registered to a P.O. box in Luxembourg. An email from Victor to Daniel with the subject line, make sure this disappears before the audit. Her intercom buzzed. Jennifer's voice came through, sounding exhausted. Ma'am, I know you said no interruptions, but there are people gathering outside the building. Victoria frowned. What kind of people? Employees, a lot of them. They're not protesting or anything, they're just standing there. Some of them have been there since 6. Victoria walked to her window and looked down. Jennifer was right. At least 50 people clustered near the main entrance holding coffee cups, talking in small groups, waiting. Do we know what they want? I think they read your email. Victoria's stomach dropped. What? Your email. To the board. It got forwarded. Someone leaked it to the company-wide distribution list about an hour ago. Jennifer paused. Everyone knows. How did that happen? I don't know, but ma'am, your phone's been ringing nonstop. I've got 17 messages from department heads asking if the merger is canceled, 8 from reporters asking for comment, and 3 from lawyers offering their services. Victoria closed her eyes. This was spiraling. She'd wanted to contain the situation until Richard arrived, until they had a plan. Now the entire company knew. The press knew. Soon the world would know. Hold all calls, she said. And Jennifer, go home. Get some rest. This is going to be a long day. I'm not leaving. You should. This isn't your fight. With respect, ma'am, yes it is. I've worked here for 8 years. I believed in what this company stood for. If someone's been stealing from us, I want to be here when they answer for it. Victoria felt something loosen in her chest. Thank you. Do you need anything? Coffee? Food? Both, and maybe a weapon. Jennifer laughed nervously. I'll see what I can do. By 7:30, the crowd outside had grown to over 200 people. Victoria watched them from her window, trying to understand what she was seeing. They weren't angry, they weren't chanting or holding signs. They were just there. Solidarity, maybe. Or curiosity. Or fear about what came next. Her phone rang again. Not buzzing this time, actually ringing, because she'd forgotten to silence it after texting Victor. She glanced at the screen. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then something made her pick up. This is Victoria Hale. It's Ryan. Victoria's breath caught. She hadn't expected to hear from him again so soon. Hadn't expected him to call at all. How did you get this number? I used to own the company. I still have access to most things. His voice was quiet, careful. I saw your email. It got leaked. I know, that wasn't supposed to happen. Victoria frowned. You leaked it? No, but I know who did. Margaret, the receptionist. She's been with Nixora since the beginning. She knew what was happening, but nobody would listen to her. When she saw your email, she made sure everyone else saw it too. She could be fired for that. She's willing to take the risk. Ryan paused. Are you? Victoria sat down slowly. I don't know what I am anymore. 12 hours ago, I thought I was running a successful company. Now I'm realizing I've been running a crime scene. You didn't know. I should have known. I'm the CEO. It's my job to know. Your job was to trust your executives. They betrayed that trust. Ryan's voice hardened. Don't let Victor make this about your failure. This is about his. Richard said you've been in contact, that you've known what was happening. For about 6 months, someone inside the company reached out, told me things were wrong. I didn't believe it at first, then I started looking into it myself. Why didn't you come forward sooner? Because I didn't want Ellie to see this. I didn't want her to watch her father tear apart the company her mother built. I thought maybe I could fix it quietly, behind the scenes. But then I saw the merger contract, and I realized there was no quiet way to stop this. Victoria thought about Ellie, the little girl in the pink backpack, coloring butterflies while her father confronted corporate criminals. Where is she now? With a friend. Safe. Ryan sounded tired. I told her we were going on an adventure. She thinks we're visiting my old office. She doesn't understand what's really happening. Does she know who you are? What you built? She knows I used to work with her mom, that they made something important together, but she's 6. She cares more about whether I remembered to pack her stuffed rabbit than whether I'm a billionaire. Victoria smiled despite everything. That's probably healthy. Yeah. Ryan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I'm sorry about yesterday, showing up like that, putting you in that position. I could have called, could have arranged a proper meeting, but I needed to see what kind of person was running my company. And what did you see? Someone who hesitated, someone who let her executives control the narrative, someone who almost made the wrong choice. He paused. But someone who ultimately didn't. Someone who stayed late to read the evidence. Someone who risked everything to send that email. Someone who might actually give a damn. I do give a damn. I know. That's why I'm calling. Ryan's voice shifted, became more urgent. The board meeting is in 90 minutes. Victor knows he's cornered. He's going to come at you hard. He'll discredit the evidence. He'll question your judgment. He'll paint you as an inexperienced CEO who cracked under pressure. I can handle Victor. Can you? Because he's been manipulating boards for 20 years. He knows how to play politics, how to shift blame, how to make himself look like the victim. Victoria's jaw tightened. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting you let me help you. How? I'm coming to the meeting. Victoria stood up. Ryan, if you walk into that boardroom, it's going to be chaos. The press is already circling. The employees are watching. If I what? Show up looking like I slept in my car? Embarrass the company? His voice was sharp now. I don't care about embarrassment. I care about stopping Victor before he destroys everything Amelia and I built. I understand that, but nothing. This is my company, my decision, and I'm not asking for permission. He hung up. Victoria stared at her phone, heart pounding. Richard had said to wait. Patricia had warned her things would get ugly, and now Ryan was coming back. Not quietly. Not through official channels, but walking straight into a boardroom full of executives who'd spent 5 years assuming he was gone for good. This was going to be a disaster. Her door opened without knocking. Victor stood in the doorway, his face carefully neutral. We need to talk. I said I'd see you at the meeting. And I said this couldn't wait. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. What the hell are you doing, Victoria? My job. Your job is to run this company, not blow it up based on conspiracy theories from homeless people. Victoria's hands clenched. Don't call him that. Why not? That's what he looked like. What he was. Victor moved closer, his voice dropping. I've been with this company for 15 years. I was here when Ryan Mercer fell apart after his wife died. I watched him abandon his responsibilities, abandon his employees. He doesn't get to show up 5 years later and pretend he cares. He never abandoned anything. He was raising his daughter. He ran away. There's the difference. Victor folded his arms. And now he's fed you some story about fraud and embezzlement and you believed him without question. Do you know how that makes you look? I don't care how it looks. You should, because the board is going to ask why you trusted an anonymous source over your own executives. They're going to ask why you didn't come to me first, why you didn't give me a chance to explain. Explain what? The $42 million you stole? The fake vendors? The offshore accounts? Victor's expression didn't change. Those documents are fabricated. Any competent forensic accountant will confirm that. Then you have nothing to worry about. I have plenty to worry about. You've created a PR nightmare. The stock is going to crash when the market opens. Investors are going to pull out. Titan is going to walk away from the merger, all because you couldn't control your emotions long enough to think rationally. Victoria stepped toward him. You want to talk about emotions? Let's talk about the way Daniel mocked a 6-year-old girl in our lobby. The way you stood there and let it happen. The way both of you treated Ryan like garbage because he didn't look rich enough to matter. I didn't know who he was. That's not an excuse. That's the problem. Victor's jaw tightened. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Is it? Because you're not the only one who'll suffer when this company collapses. There are 3,000 employees counting on you to make smart decisions. Shareholders who invested their savings. Communities that depend on our energy contracts. You're willing to gamble with all of that because some stranger showed you documents you don't fully understand? Victoria met his eyes. I understand them perfectly. And if you're innocent, the investigation will prove it. What investigation? The one Richard Chen is launching when he arrives. The one the board is going to approve this morning. The one that's going to involve federal authorities if we find what I think we're going to find. Victor went very still. Richard's coming here. He'll be here before the meeting. Something flickered across Victor's face. Not quite fear, but close. He recovered quickly, smoothing his expression back to neutral. Then I look forward to clearing my name. He turned and walked out, leaving the door open behind him. Victoria sat down, hands shaking. She'd just declared war on a man who'd been playing corporate politics since before she graduated college. A man who had allies, resources, and no moral compass to slow him down. Her phone buzzed. Text from Richard. Landing in 20 minutes. Don't engage with Victor until I'm there. Too late for that. Another text, this one from an unknown number. The employees outside are asking to speak with you. Margaret Victoria looked out her window again. The crowd had grown even larger. Some people were holding signs now, not protest signs, support signs. We stand with Nexora. Protect our mission. Justice for Amelia. That last one hit her like a punch. Amelia Mercer, the woman she'd never met. The co-founder who died before Victoria even joined the company. People still remembered her, still cared about what she'd fought for. Victoria grabbed her coat and headed for the elevator. Jennifer tried to stop her. Ma'am, the board meeting is in an hour. You should prepare. I'll prepare downstairs. But, Jennifer, those people showed up at 6 in the morning to stand outside in the cold because they believe this company still matters. The least I can do is talk to them. The elevator ride down felt longer than usual. Victoria straightened her wrinkled blouse, tried to fix her hair, then gave up. She looked like she'd been up all night because she had been. Might as well own it. The doors opened. She stepped into the lobby and Margaret stood immediately, relief flooding her face. Ms. Hale, I'm sorry about the email. I know I shouldn't have. It's fine, Margaret. It's not fine. I broke protocol. I could be terminated. Victoria touched the older woman's shoulder. You did what you thought was right. That takes courage. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. I worked with Amelia. Did you know that? She hired me personally. Told me that Nexora wasn't just a company, it was a promise. A promise to people who'd been forgotten by everyone else. She wiped her eyes. I've watched that promise get broken piece by piece for 3 years. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I'm glad you didn't. Victoria walked toward the front doors. Through the glass, she could see the crowd. Hundreds of faces turned toward her. She pushed the door open and stepped outside. The morning air was cold, biting. Someone handed her a coffee. Someone else offered their coat. Victoria shook her head at both. Thank you all for coming, she said. Her voice sounded small against the noise of the city waking up around them. I know you have questions. I wish I had better answers. Is the merger canceled? Someone called out. I don't know yet. That's up to the board. Is it true Victor Kane stole money? There's evidence suggesting serious financial misconduct. We're investigating. What about the rural hospital contracts? Are we still honoring those? Victoria hesitated. She didn't know. The contracts were part of the projects Victor had marked for cancellation. If the merger went through, they'd be terminated within 18 months. If it didn't, they might survive. Might. I'm going to fight to keep them, she said finally. I can't promise more than that right now, but I can promise I'm not going to let this company forget what it was built to do. A young woman near the front spoke up. I work in the Rural Energy Division. We just got word this morning that our entire department might be restructured. People are scared. We need to know if we're going to have jobs next month. Victoria felt the weight of 3,000 employees pressing down on her. I can't guarantee anything, but I can tell you that I'm going to do everything in my power to protect the people and projects that make Nexora worth saving, even if it costs me my job. What if the board sides with Victor? Then I'll keep fighting anyway. Someone started clapping. Then someone else. Then the whole crowd was applauding, and Victoria felt something break inside her chest. These people had no reason to trust her. She'd been CEO for 3 years and hadn't noticed the corruption happening right in front of her. She'd let Victor manipulate her, let Daniel mock employees, let the company drift away from its mission. But they were giving her a chance anyway. The applause faded, and a man in a maintenance uniform called out, "Is Ryan Mercer really back?" The crowd went quiet. Victoria thought about lying, about deflecting, but these people deserved the truth. "Yes," she said. "He came to the office yesterday. He's the one who brought the evidence of fraud to my attention." "Where is he now?" "I don't know, but I think he'll be at the board meeting." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Someone said, "I heard he's been raising his daughter alone." Someone else said, "My sister worked with Amelia. She said they were perfect together." A third voice said, "He looked homeless." That's what Daniel told people. Victoria's jaw clenched. Ryan Mercer is a single father who's been focused on his daughter for 5 years. What he looks like doesn't matter. What matters is that he cared enough to come back when his company needed him. Do you think he'll stay? Take over again? I don't know what he'll do. But whatever happens, I'm grateful he came back. A black town car pulled up to the curb. Richard Chen stepped out, moving slowly, leaning on a cane Victoria hadn't seen him use before. The crowd parted to let him through. "Ms. Hale," he said formally. Then, quieter, "We need to talk before the meeting." Victoria nodded. She turned back to the crowd. "Thank you all for being here. It means more than you know." She followed Richard inside. Margaret handed him a coffee without being asked, and Richard smiled at her. "Still taking care of people, I see." "Someone has to, Mr. Chen." They took the elevator to Victoria's office. Richard didn't speak until the door was closed and they were alone. "You look terrible," he said. "I feel worse." "Good. You should." He sat down heavily. "Do you understand what you've started?" "A war." "No. A reckoning." Richard set his cane aside. "I've been on this board for 12 years. I've watched good people get pushed out, watched programs get canceled, watched the company drift further from what it was supposed to be. And I didn't stop it. None of us did. We told ourselves it was just business, just evolution, just the way things had to be. You couldn't have known about the fraud, couldn't I? Victor's been COO for 6 years. In that time, we've had 3 separate audits that found minor discrepancies. Each time, Victor explained them away. Each time, we accepted his explanations because it was easier than digging deeper." Richard looked at her. "We enabled this. All of us. What do we do now?" "We clean house, starting with Victor and Daniel, but it won't stop there. Anyone who helped them, anyone who knew and stayed silent, they go too. That could be half the executive team." "Then half the executive team goes." Victoria thought about the logistics, the chaos, the media feeding frenzy. "The company might not survive this." "The company won't survive if we don't do this." Richard leaned forward. "Ryan gave us a chance. He could have gone to the FBI directly. Could have let Victor destroy Nexora and then bought it back for pennies. But he came to you first. He gave you the evidence. He trusted you to do the right thing. Why? Because you reminded him of Amelia." Victoria's throat tightened. "I never met her." "I know, but I did. And Ryan's right. You have the same fire, the same refusal to accept easy answers. The same stubborn belief that business can be more than just profit. Richard smiled sadly. She would have liked you. Before Victoria could respond, her phone rang. Unknown number again, she answered. It's Margaret. Mr. Mercer is here. Victoria's heart jumped. Send him up. Actually, ma'am, he's asking if he can see you in conference room 2, the same one as yesterday. He has his daughter with him. Victoria glanced at Richard. He nodded. Tell him I'll be right down. She ended the call and stood up. Richard stood too, slower. Do you want me to come with you? No, this is something I need to do alone. She took the elevator down, heart pounding. When she reached conference room 2, she paused outside the door. Took a breath. Knocked. Come in. Ryan was sitting in the same chair as yesterday. Ellie sat beside him, coloring in a new book. She looked up when Victoria entered and smiled. Hi, I remember you. Victoria smiled back. Hi, Ellie. I remember you too. Ryan stood. He looked different today, still tired, still worn, but steadier somehow, like he'd made a decision and was standing by it. Thank you for seeing us, he said. Thank you for coming back. Victoria closed the door and sat down across from them. I read everything on the flash drive. I sent it to Richard. We're launching a full investigation. I know. That's why I'm here. Ryan glanced at Ellie, who was absorbed in her coloring. I'm coming to the board meeting. I'm going to vote to remove Victor and Daniel. I'm going to vote to cancel the merger. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows what they did. The press is going to destroy you. They'll dig up every detail of the last 5 years. They'll publish photos of Ellie. They'll turn your life into a circus. I know. Then why do it? Ryan looked at his daughter. Because she deserves to grow up in a world where people face consequences for their actions. Where doing the right thing matters more than protecting your reputation. Where her mother's work isn't destroyed by men who only care about themselves. Ellie looked up. Daddy, who are you talking about? Nobody, sweetheart, just grown-up stuff. Boring grown-up stuff. Very boring. She went back to coloring, satisfied. Ryan turned back to Victoria. I'm sorry for putting you in this position, for making you the one who had to send that email. I could have done it myself. Why didn't you? Because it needed to come from you. The board trusts you. The employees trust you. If it came from me, the disappeared founder, the ghost who abandoned his company, they'd assume it was revenge, or grief, or mental instability. He smiled bitterly. But coming from you? From the CEO they hired to protect Nixor's future? That means something. Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. I almost didn't send it. But you did. I was terrified. Good. You should be. This is terrifying. Ryan leaned back. When Amelia was dying, she made me promise something. She made me promise that no matter what happened, I wouldn't let Nixor become just another corporation. That I'd fight to keep it human, keep it focused on people instead of profits. His voice cracked. I broke that promise. I walked away. And for 5 years I told myself I was doing it for Ellie, that I was being a good father. But the truth is, I was just scared. Scared of failing, scared of facing the company without Amelia beside me, scared of being the man she believed I could be. You were grieving. I was hiding. Ryan wiped his eyes. But I'm done hiding. Whatever happens in that boardroom, whatever the press says, whatever happens to this company, I'm done running. Victoria reached across the table and took his hand. Then we'll face it together. The boardroom on the 42nd floor was already full when they arrived. 12 board members sat around the long table, their faces ranging from curious to hostile. Victor and Daniel sat together on one side, looking calm and confident. Too confident. Richard sat at the head of the table. When Ryan walked in, holding Ellie's hand, the room went completely silent. Victor recovered first. Ryan, what a surprise. I'm sure it is. Ryan helped Ellie into a chair against the wall, gave her the coloring book, then turned to face the board. Thank you all for allowing me to attend. Allowing? Victor's smile was thin. You're the founder. You have more right to be here than anyone. Then let's exercise that right. Ryan pulled out the chair next to Victoria and sat down. I'm here to vote on the Titan merger and to address the accusations Ms. Hale raised in her email. Patricia Whitmore spoke up. Before we begin, I think we need to establish some ground rules. This is an official board meeting. Everything said here is on the record. If anyone... I have evidence. Ryan placed a folder on the table. Bank statements, email records, contract forgeries. Everything Ms. Hale referenced in her email, plus additional documentation I've gathered over the past 6 months. I'm making it all available to the board now. Daniel leaned forward. With all respect, Ryan, you've been out of the company for 5 years. You don't understand how modern energy markets work. What looks like impropriety to you might just be standard corporate practice. Embezzlement is standard corporate practice? Nobody's embezzling anything. Then explain the $42 million routed through shell companies registered to your brother-in-law. Daniel's face went white. The room erupted in noise, board members talking over each other, demanding explanations, asking questions. Richard banged his cane against the floor. Order. Everyone quiet. The room fell silent again. Richard looked at Victor. Do you have a response to these allegations? Victor stood slowly. I have several responses. First, those documents are either fabricated or misinterpreted. Second, Ryan Mercer has no standing to make accusations about corporate operations he hasn't been involved in for half a decade. Third, this entire situation is a transparent attempt to sabotage a merger that would benefit everyone. Everyone except the people Nexora was built to serve, Ryan interrupted. The people Nexora was built to serve don't pay the bills. Shareholders do. Investors do. And both groups want this merger to happen. Some shareholders, Patricia said quietly. Not all. Victor turned to her. You're siding with him? With a man who abandoned his company to play single parent? Don't. Victoria's voice cut like a blade. Don't you dare minimize what he's been doing. I'm not minimizing anything. I'm stating facts. Ryan Mercer walked away from his responsibilities. He left us to clean up his mess. And now he wants to waltz back in and judge how we've run things in his absence? Ryan stood up. His voice was quiet, controlled, and somehow more intimidating than if he'd been shouting. You're right. I walked away. I left this company in the hands of people I trusted to protect it. People who swore they believed in what Amelia and I built. People who promised they'd keep Nexora focused on its mission. He looked around the table. And you destroyed it. Not quickly. Not obviously. But piece by piece, decision by decision, you turned my wife's dream into just another profit machine. So yes, I'm judging you, all of you, and you've been found wanting. The room erupted again. And outside the window, the sun rose over Chicago, indifferent to the war being waged 42 floors below. Richard banged his cane against the floor 3 more times before the shouting died down. Board members were on their feet, some pointing fingers at Victor, others demanding to see the evidence, a few just looking shell-shocked. Daniel had gone completely silent, his face the color of old newspaper. Everyone sit down, Richard said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight. Now, they sat. Victor remained standing for a moment longer, his jaw tight, before slowly lowering himself back into his chair. He looked at Ryan with something close to hatred. You can't prove any of this, Victor said. Actually, I can. Ryan opened the folder in front of him and pulled out a stack of documents. This is a wire transfer from Nexora Energy to Cascade Solutions dated March 15th, 2 years ago. Amount, $800,000. Purpose listed as equipment maintenance. So Cascade Solutions doesn't exist. The business registration is fake. The address listed is a P.O. box in the Cayman Islands, and the account that received the money is controlled by a shell corporation called Meridian Holdings, which is owned by, Ryan flipped to another page, Daniel Ross's brother-in-law, Trevor Hutchins. Daniel shot to his feet. That's a lie. Trevor runs a legitimate consulting business. He's been vetted by you, Ryan interrupted. You approved the vendor contract. You signed off on the payments. You're the only person in the finance department who had access to those accounts. This is insane, Victor. Tell him. Sit down, Daniel. Victor's voice was ice. Daniel sat, looking like he might be sick. Patricia leaned forward, studying the documents Ryan had spread across the table. These wire transfers. How many are there? 63 over 3 years, totaling $42.6 million. Someone at the far end of the table swore quietly. Another board member, an older man named Harrison, picked up one of the bank statements and held it up to the light like he was checking for watermarks. This could be fabricated, Harrison said, but he didn't sound convinced. It's not, Ryan said, and I have the bank records to prove it. I've already been in contact with Nixora's auditing firm. They're prepared to verify everything I'm showing you today. Victor's expression finally cracked. Just for a second, Victoria saw panic flash across his face before he smoothed it away. You contacted our auditors without board approval? I contacted them as the majority shareholder, which I still am, in case anyone forgot. You gave up operational control when you left. I gave up my position as CEO. I never gave up my shares. I never signed over my voting rights. And according to the corporate bylaws Amelia and I wrote 20 years ago, I have the authority to call for an emergency audit whenever I believe the company is at risk. Ryan's voice was calm, almost gentle. It made what he was saying sound worse. The company is at risk, Victor, because of you. The room fell silent. Even the city noise from outside seemed to fade. Victoria watched Victor's face, saw the calculations happening behind his eyes. He was cornered, but he wasn't done fighting. Fine, Victor said finally. Let's say, hypothetically, that there were some financial irregularities, some accounting errors. That doesn't automatically mean fraud. It could be mismanagement. It could be oversight. It could be a lot of things, Richard cut in. But what it looks like, Victor, is theft. Systematic, premeditated theft. And if even half of what Ryan is presenting is accurate, you and Daniel are looking at criminal charges. Daniel made a choking sound. I didn't know. Victor said the payments were legitimate. He said, "Shut up, Daniel." Victor's voice was sharp. No, I'm not taking the fall for this alone. You told me Cascade Solutions was a real vendor. You said the offshore accounts were for tax purposes. You said everything was legal. I said, shut up. But Daniel was past listening. He turned to the board, words tumbling out fast and desperate. I didn't know the companies were fake. I processed the payments because Victor approved them. He's the COO. I trusted him. You trusted the money, Ryan said quietly. How much did he promise you, Daniel? How big was your cut? Daniel went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Ryan pulled out another document. This is a contract between you and Titan Energy, signed 3 months ago. It promises you a VP position and a $15 million signing bonus once the merger is complete. The contract was negotiated by Victor Kane on your behalf. Victoria felt her stomach drop. She'd known Victor and Daniel were corrupt, but seeing it laid out like this, the numbers, the dates, the signatures, made it real in a way that turned her hands cold. That contract is confidential, Daniel said weakly. Not anymore. Ryan looked at Richard. I'm formally requesting that the board vote to remove Victor Kane and Daniel Ross from their positions, effective immediately. I'm also requesting that all evidence of financial misconduct be turned over to federal authorities for criminal investigation. Seconded, Patricia said immediately. Wait. Victor stood up, and this time he didn't look calm or controlled. He looked angry. You can't just walk back in here after 5 years and destroy everything we've built. This company was dying when you left. We saved it. We turned it profitable. We made it matter again. You made it profitable by cutting every program that didn't turn an immediate return, Victoria said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking under the table. You canceled the rural hospital contracts. You shut down the community energy projects. You fired researchers who were working on next-generation clean technology because their work wasn't marketable yet. Because those projects were bleeding money. Because they were unsustainable. Because in the real world, Victoria, companies that don't make money don't survive. Nixora wasn't built to just survive. It was built to make a difference. That's a nice slogan. It doesn't pay salaries. No, but stealing $40 million does. Ryan's voice cut through the argument. You didn't save this company, Victor. You gutted it. You took everything Amelia believed in and sold it piece by piece. And when that wasn't enough, you tried to sell the whole thing to the highest bidder. Victor's face went red. Don't you dare bring Amelia into this. You don't get to use her as some moral shield. You abandoned her legacy. You walked away and left us to shoo. I walked away to raise our daughter. Ryan's voice was quiet now, deadly quiet. I walked away because watching my wife die destroyed me, and I had a 6-year-old who needed a father more than she needed a CEO, but I never abandoned Nixora. I never stopped caring. I just stopped being able to watch what you were doing to it." From her chair against the wall, Ellie looked up from her coloring. "Daddy!" Ryan's expression shifted instantly. "I'm okay, sweetheart. Just talking." "You sound sad." "I'm not sad. I promise." Ellie studied him for a long moment, then went back to her coloring, apparently satisfied. But Victoria saw the way Ryan's hands were trembling, saw the effort it took for him to turn back to the board and keep his voice steady. "I'm calling for a vote," Ryan said. "All in favor of removing Victor Kane and Daniel Ross from their executive positions?" "You can't do that," Victor said. "You're not on the board. You don't have voting authority." Richard spoke up. "Actually, according to the founder's clause in the corporate bylaws, Ryan can call for an emergency vote on any matter affecting company leadership. The clause was put in place specifically to prevent hostile takeovers or executive corruption. That clause hasn't been used in 20 years. That doesn't make it invalid." Richard looked around the table. "All board members have received copies of the evidence. We've heard testimony from both sides. I'm calling the vote. All in favor?" Patricia's hand went up immediately, then Harrison's, then 3 more hands, then 2 more. Victor watched the hands rise, his face going from red to white. "This is a witch hunt. You're destroying this company based on unverified accusations from a man who—" "8 votes in favor," Richard said. "All opposed?" 2 hands went up. Both belonged to board members Victoria knew had business relationships with Victor. They looked uncomfortable raising their hands, but they did it anyway. Motion passes. Victor Kane and Daniel Ross are hereby removed from their executive positions at Nexora Energy, effective immediately. Richard's voice was formal, final. "Security will escort you from the building. You have 1 hour to collect personal items from your offices. All company equipment, files, and access credentials must be surrendered before you leave." Daniel stood up so fast his chair fell over. "This is insane. You can't just fire us. We have contracts. We have rights. We'll sue. You'll be lucky if lawsuits are the worst thing you face," Patricia said coldly. "I suggest you hire a good lawyer, Daniel. You're going to need one." Victor didn't move. He sat there, staring at Ryan with an expression Victoria couldn't quite read. Hatred, yes, but also something that looked almost like respect. "You planned this," Victor said quietly. "All of it. Showing up looking homeless, bringing your daughter, making yourself look sympathetic. You manipulated everyone." "I showed up looking like a single father who's been raising his kid alone for 5 years," Ryan said. "That's not manipulation. That's just reality." "And the evidence? The flash drive? The perfect timing?" "I've been gathering evidence for 6 months. I gave it to Victoria because I trusted her to do the right thing. She did. That's not manipulation either. That's just faith in decent people." Victor stood slowly. "This isn't over. You think you've won, but all you've done is destroy a company that was finally moving forward. The merger was good for Nexora. It was good for the shareholders. It was good for everyone." "It was good for you," Victoria said. "Nobody else." Victor looked at her, and for a moment his mask slipped completely. She saw exhaustion underneath, bitterness, and something that might have been genuine belief that he'd been doing the right thing. "You're making a mistake," he said quietly. "All of you. But you'll figure that out when the stock crashes and the investors pull out and this whole company collapses. And when that happens, remember that I tried to save it." He walked toward the door. Daniel followed, moving like a man in shock. Security guards were already waiting in the hallway. Through the glass walls, Victoria could see employees watching. Some looked relieved. Some looked scared. Most just looked confused. The door closed behind Victor and Daniel. The boardroom stayed silent for a long moment. Then Harrison spoke up. "Well, that was dramatic." Someone laughed, a little hysterically. The tension broke, and suddenly everyone was talking at once, asking questions, demanding next steps, trying to process what had just happened. Richard banged his cane again. "Quiet. We're not done yet." The room settled. Richard looked at Ryan. "The merger. We need to vote on whether to proceed or cancel." "Cancel it," Ryan said immediately. Titan was never interested in partnership. They wanted acquisition. They wanted to absorb Nexora and strip it for parts. The contract proves that. "Canceling the merger will cost us," Patricia said. "Titan will claim breach of contract. They'll sue for damages. Let them sue. We'll win." How can you be sure? Ryan pulled out yet another document. Victoria was starting to wonder how much evidence he'd actually gathered. Because the merger contract includes a fraud clause. If either party is found to have engaged in fraudulent activity during negotiations, the contract is void. Victor was negotiating on behalf of Nexora while actively embezzling from the company. That's fraud. The contract is void. Harrison leaned back in his chair. You really did think of everything. I had 6 months and a lot of sleepless nights. Ryan looked exhausted suddenly, like the adrenaline was wearing off and the weight of everything was settling onto his shoulders. I didn't want it to come to this. I wanted to believe there was a way to fix things quietly. But Victor wasn't going to stop, and the merger was the endgame. Once that went through, Nexora, as we knew it, would be gone. So what now? Patricia asked. We've removed our COO and CFO. We've canceled a major merger. The press is going to have a field day. Stock prices are going to tank. Investors are going to panic. We need a plan. Everyone looked at Ryan. He stared back at them. Don't look at me, he said. I'm not coming back as CEO. Victoria felt something drop in her chest. What? I can't run this company. I have a 6-year-old daughter who needs me. I've already missed too much of her life trying to save Nexora from a distance. I'm not going to miss more by coming back full time. Then what are you going to do? Harrison asked. I'm going to stay involved as a board member. I'm going to use my voting shares to make sure we don't slide back into corruption. I'm going to help rebuild the programs Victor destroyed, but the day-to-day operations? Ryan looked at Victoria. That's still your job, if you want it. Victoria's throat went tight. After everything that happened on my watch? After I let Victor manipulate me for 3 years? You didn't let him do anything. He lied to you. He manipulated the books. He hid evidence. You couldn't have known. I should have known. I'm the CEO. You're a CEO who just risked everything to expose fraud. Who sent that email knowing it could end your career? Who stood up to Victor even when it would have been easier to look the other way? Ryan's voice was gentle. You made mistakes. So did I. So did everyone in this room. But you also did the right thing when it mattered most. That counts for something. Patricia nodded. I agree. Victoria, if you're willing to stay on, I'd like to nominate you to continue as CEO. Seconded, Harrison said. Victoria looked around the table. Most of the board members were nodding. A few looked uncertain, but not hostile. She thought about walking away, about resigning before she could be pushed out, about finding a quieter job somewhere where the stakes weren't so high and the mistakes didn't cost so much. Then she thought about the employees standing outside at 6 a.m, about Margaret leaking the email because she couldn't stay silent anymore, about Ryan coming back even though it meant exposing his daughter to the media circus that was about to descend on them all. I'll stay, she said quietly. But I want some things to change. Like what? Richard asked. Richard, like transparency. I want monthly financial reviews with the full board. I want external auditors brought in every quarter. I want every major contract reviewed by at least 3 people before it's signed. No more black boxes. No more trusting executives just because they've been here longer than I have. Done, Patricia said. What else? I want the humanitarian programs reinstated, the rural hospital contracts, the community energy projects, the research division that was working on next-generation clean technology. All of it. That's going to be expensive, Harrison warned. I don't care. Those programs are what make Nexora different. They're what Amelia and Ryan built this company to do. If we can't afford to run them, then we need to find a way to make them affordable. But we're not cutting them again. Ryan was looking at her with something like pride. Anything else? Yes. Victoria turned to him. I want you involved, not as CEO, but as an advisor. Someone I can talk to when I'm not sure what to do. Someone who remembers what this company was supposed to be. I can do that. And I want a better culture. I want employees to feel like they can speak up when something's wrong. I want executives who care about people, not just profit margins. I want Nexora to feel human again. The room was quiet. Then Richard smiled. I think Amelia would have approved. Victoria felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them away. When do we tell the press? Now, Richard said. We hold a press conference this afternoon. Full transparency. We explain what happened, what we're doing about it, and where the company is going from here. They're going to ask about Ryan. Let them ask. Ryan stood up, walked over to where Ellie was coloring, and crouched beside her. Hey, Ellie Bell, we need to talk about something. Ellie looked up. Are we going home? Soon, but first there are going to be some people who want to talk to Daddy. People with cameras, reporters. They're going to ask a lot of questions. Why? Because Daddy used to work here, and now he's helping fix some problems. And when people fix big problems, other people want to know about it. Ellie frowned. Will they ask me questions? Maybe, but you don't have to answer if you don't want to, and I'll be right there with you the whole time. Okay. She went back to coloring, unconcerned. Kids had a way of accepting things that would terrify adults. Ryan stood and looked at Victoria. We should prepare talking points. Figure out what we're going to say. I'll handle the business side, Victoria said. You just need to explain why you came back. That's the easy part. I came back because my daughter deserves to inherit a company that still stands for something. They spent the next 2 hours preparing. Jennifer coordinated with the PR team to set up a press conference in the main lobby. Security cleared space for reporters and camera crews. Margaret fielded calls from every major news outlet in the city, politely declining to comment until the official statement. By noon, the lobby was packed. Cameras everywhere, reporters shouting questions before anyone even approached the microphone. Victoria stood backstage with Ryan, watching through a gap in the curtain. I forgot how much I hate this part, Ryan said. Which part? All of it. The cameras, the questions, the way they turn everything into a story instead of just reporting what happened. We could still cancel. Put out a written statement instead. No, people deserve to hear this directly. They deserve to see that we're not hiding. Victoria looked at him. You're brave. You know that? I'm terrified. There's a difference. Doesn't look like it from here. Ryan smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Where's Ellie? Margaret's watching her in my office. She'll be safe there. Good. I don't want her seeing this. Not yet. Richard appeared, leaning on his cane. It's time. They walked out together. The noise from the reporters was overwhelming. Flashes from cameras turned the lobby into a strobe light. Victoria stepped up to the microphone, and the crowd quieted just enough for her to speak. Thank you all for coming. I'm Victoria Hale, CEO of Nexora Energy. This morning, the board of directors voted to remove COO Victor Kane and CFO Daniel Ross from their positions, effective immediately. This decision was made after an internal investigation revealed evidence of financial misconduct and fraud. The reporters erupted, everyone shouting questions at once. Victoria raised her hand. I'll take questions in a moment. First, I want to introduce someone many of you have been asking about. She gestured to Ryan. This is Ryan Mercer, founder of Nexora Energy. The lobby went insane. Cameras flashed so rapidly it felt like standing in a lightning storm. Reporters pushed forward. Security guards pushed back. Someone knocked over a microphone stand. The noise was deafening. Ryan stepped up to the microphone and waited. Eventually, the crowd settled enough for him to speak. 5 years ago, I lost my wife to cancer. Amelia Mercer was my partner in every sense. In life, in love, and in building this company. When she died, I made a choice. I stepped away from Nexora to focus on raising our daughter. Some people called it abandonment. Maybe they were right. But it was the only choice I could make and still be the father Ellie needed. His voice was steady, but Victoria could see the effort it took, saw the way his hands gripped the podium. 6 months ago, I learned that executives at Nexora were engaged in fraud, that they were stealing from the company Amelia and I built, that they were planning to sell Nexora in a merger that would destroy everything we'd worked for. So I came back. Not as CEO, not as some returning hero, just as someone who couldn't watch his wife's legacy be destroyed by people who only cared about profit. A reporter shouted, "Why didn't you come forward sooner?" Because I wanted to give the current leadership a chance to fix it themselves. I gave evidence to Ms. Hale. She did the right thing. She risked her career to expose the fraud. That took courage. What happens to Nexora now? Another reporter called out. Nexora continues. We're canceling the Titan merger. We're reinstating the humanitarian programs that were cut. We're rebuilding this company to be what it was always meant to be, a force for good, not just profit. Are you returning as CEO? No. My daughter needs me more than this company does. Victoria Hale will continue as CEO. I'll stay involved as a board member, but the day-to-day operations are hers. Do you think Nixora can survive this scandal? Ryan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I think companies, like people, are defined by how they respond when things go wrong. Nixora went wrong. We're responding by holding people accountable, by being transparent, and by recommitting to our founding values. If that's not enough to survive, then maybe we don't deserve to. The questions kept coming. How much money was stolen? Would there be criminal charges? What about the shareholders? What about the stock price? Victoria and Ryan answered what they could, deflected what they couldn't. Finally, Richard stepped up. That's all for now. We'll release more information as the investigation continues. Thank you. They walked backstage through a wall of noise. Once they were away from the cameras, Victoria leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. That was awful, she said. Could have been worse, Ryan said. How? They could have asked about Ellie. They will eventually, but at least we got through today without it. Victoria's phone buzzed. She pulled it out and saw a text from Jennifer. Stock down 18% and falling. Investors asking for emergency call. She showed the message to Ryan. He sighed. This is going to get worse before it gets better. I know. The board might lose their nerve. They might decide I was wrong, that we should have kept Victor, kept the merger, kept everything quiet. Then we'll fight them too. Ryan looked at her. You really mean that? I really do. They stood there for a moment, two people who'd been strangers 48 hours ago and were now bound together by a company that felt less like a business and more like a battlefield. I should check on Ellie, Ryan said finally. Go. I'll handle the investors. He started to walk away, then turned back. Victoria, thank you for believing me, for sending that email, for not taking the easy way out. Thank you for coming back, for trusting me with the evidence, for giving us a chance to fix this. Ryan nodded and disappeared down the hallway. Victoria pulled out her phone and called Patricia. I need you to set up a call with the major investors. Today. We need to control this narrative before it controls us. Already on it. Conference call at 4. Be ready for blood. The call was exactly as bad as Victoria expected. Investors screaming about losses, demanding explanations, threatening to pull their money. She spent 2 hours talking them down, explaining the situation, promising transparency and accountability. Some of them listened. Some of them didn't. By the time the call ended, 3 major investors had announced they were divesting. The stock dropped another 12%. Victoria sat in her office afterwards, staring at the numbers on her screen. In one day, she'd lost the COO, the CFO, and 28% of Nexora's market value. Any reasonable person would call that a disaster. But when she looked out her window at the employees still gathered below, still holding their signs, still believing the company was worth fighting for, she couldn't quite bring herself to agree. Her door opened. Ryan walked in, Ellie following behind him. She wanted to see where Mommy used to work, Ryan said quietly. Ellie looked around the office with wide eyes. Daddy says Mommy had a desk like yours. She did, right over there. Victoria pointed to a corner where she'd set up a reading chair. That's where she used to sit when she needed to think. Can I sit there? Of course. Ellie climbed into the chair, her small body barely making a dent in the cushions. She sat very still, very serious, like she was trying to feel some connection to a mother she barely remembered. Ryan watched her, his expression unreadable. She asks about Amelia sometimes, he said quietly. I tell her stories, show her pictures, but it's not the same as remembering. What do you tell her about Nexora? I tell her that her mother wanted to help people, that she believed everyone deserved access to clean energy, not just people who could afford it, that she spent her whole life fighting to make that real. That's a good legacy. It is, if we can keep it alive. Victoria looked at the numbers on her screen again. The falling stock price, the angry investors, the uncertain future. Then she looked at Ellie, sitting in Amelia's chair, and she made a decision. We will, she said, no matter what it cost. We will. The next 72 hours felt like drowning in slow motion. Victoria slept 3 hours the first night, 2 the second, none the third. Her office became a war room, laptops everywhere, coffee cups growing cold on every surface, Jennifer bringing food that mostly went uneaten. The stock kept falling, 31% down by Wednesday morning. Investors were hemorrhaging money, and they wanted blood in return. Ryan showed up each morning at 7, Ellie in tow, and stayed until she got restless around noon. He'd set up a small corner in Victoria's office with coloring books and toys, turning the space into something that felt less like corporate headquarters and more like a daycare center that happened to be trying to save a multi-billion-dollar company. "You need to sleep," Ryan said on the third morning, watching Victoria stare at her seventh cup of coffee like it held answers. "I'll sleep when this is over. It's not going to be over for months, maybe years. Then I'll sleep in a few years." He didn't smile. "Victoria, you're no good to anyone if you collapse." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're running on fumes and stubbornness." He pulled the coffee cup away from her. "Go home, shower, sleep for 4 hours. The company will still be here when you get back." "I can't. The audit team is coming at 2. The legal team needs briefing at 4, and I have calls with—" "I'll handle them." Victoria looked up. "You said you weren't coming back as CEO." "I'm not, but I can field calls for a few hours while you remember what it's like to be human." Ryan's voice was gentle but firm. "Please, for me, for Ellie, who keeps asking why the nice lady looks so tired." Victoria glanced at Ellie, who was watching them both with serious eyes while pretending to focus on coloring a unicorn. "Fine," Victoria said. 4 hours. But if anything urgent happens, I'll call you immediately." She grabbed her coat and bag, moving like someone who'd forgotten how bodies worked. In the elevator down, she caught her reflection in the steel doors. Ryan was right. She looked terrible. Worse than terrible. She looked like someone who'd aged 5 years in 3 days. Her apartment felt foreign. She'd barely been home since the press conference, just quick stops to change clothes and check mail. Now, standing in her living room in the middle of a Wednesday afternoon, she felt like an intruder in her own space. She showered until the hot water ran cold, then collapsed into bed fully intending to sleep for exactly 4 hours. She woke up 9 hours later to her phone ringing in the darkness. She grabbed it, panic flooding through her. Ryan's name on the screen. "What happened? What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Breathe." Ryan's voice was calm. "I just wanted to check if you were alive. You've been gone for 9 hours. Victoria looked at her clock, 8 p.m. "I was supposed to be back at noon." "I know. I told everyone you were in meetings off-site. Patricia covered for you with the audit team. Richard handled the legal briefing. We survived. The calls, all handled. The world didn't end because you took a day to sleep." Victoria sat up, rubbing her face. She felt marginally more human, still exhausted, but no longer on the edge of collapse. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just eat something and come back tomorrow. We have a long road ahead." He hung up before she could respond. Victoria sat in the dark for a moment, then got up and made herself actual food. Not coffee, not energy bars, but real food. Pasta, vegetables, things that required cooking. While she ate, she checked her email. Hundreds of unread messages. She scanned the subject lines, looking for disasters. Most were what she expected. Investor complaints, press inquiries, legal notifications. But one caught her eye. Subject line, from a small town in Indiana. She opened it. "Miss Hale, you don't know me. My name is Sarah Chen. I'm the administrator at Riverside Community Hospital in Moorfield, Indiana. Population 3,200. We're small. Forgotten by most people. But 3 years ago, Nexora Energy partnered with us to install a clean energy system that cut our operating costs by 40%. That money went directly into patient care, better equipment, more staff, extended hours. Last month, we got notice that our contract was being terminated. No explanation, no warning. Just a form letter saying the program was being discontinued. Then yesterday, we got another letter, this one from you, saying the contract was being reinstated, saying Nexora was recommitting to its community partnerships, saying we mattered. I cried when I read it. Our whole staff cried, because we'd started planning which services to cut, which people to lay off, how to explain to our patients that we couldn't afford to keep their rural hospital running. I don't know what's happening at Nexora. I see the news about fraud and stock prices and corporate drama. But I want you to know that whatever you're doing, whatever it's costing you, it matters. You're saving lives. Not in some abstract corporate way, in a real tangible way. Thank you." Sarah Chen Victoria read the email 3 times. Then she forwarded it to Ryan with a single line. "This is why we're fighting." His response came immediately. I know. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be worse. He was right. Thursday morning brought federal investigators. Two agents from the FBI, polite but relentless, asking questions about Victor, about Daniel, about the shell companies and offshore accounts. They interviewed Victoria for 4 hours. Then they interviewed Ryan for 6. When Ryan finally emerged from the conference room, he looked drained. Ellie ran to him immediately, wrapping her arms around his legs. "Daddy, you were gone forever." "I know, sweetheart. I'm sorry." "Were those the police?" Ryan glanced at Victoria, who'd been waiting in the hallway. "Sort of. They're people who make sure companies follow the rules." "Did we break the rules?" "Some people did. We're helping fix it." Ellie seemed satisfied with that answer. Ryan picked her up even though she was getting too big for it and carried her toward the elevator. "How bad?" Victoria asked quietly. "They're building a criminal case. Against Victor, definitely. Daniel too, probably. They'll want more interviews, more documents. This is going to drag out for months." "What about us? The company?" "They're treating us as cooperative witnesses, not targets, for now." Ryan shifted Ellie's weight. "But Victoria, this is going to get uglier. They're going to subpoena records, interview employees, dig through everything. The press is going to have a field day." "Can Nixor survive that?" "I don't know. Honestly, I don't know." That night, Victoria stayed late again, reviewing financial projections with Patricia and Harrison. The numbers were brutal. Without the Titan merger, Nixora was looking at a significant cash flow problem. Not immediate bankruptcy, but close enough to make everyone nervous. "We need to cut costs," Harrison said. "Significantly." "Where?" Victoria asked. "Administration, marketing, executive compensation." He paused. "And maybe some of the community programs." "No." Victoria's voice was flat. "We're not cutting the community programs." "Victoria, we're losing money. We have to cut somewhere." "Then we cut everywhere else. We reduce executive salaries, mine included. We eliminate bonuses. We renegotiate vendor contracts. We find every penny of waste in this building and we cut it. But we do not abandon the people who depend on us." Patricia was looking at her with something like respect. "You realize that's going to make you extremely unpopular with the remaining executives." "I don't care." "You should care. You need allies. You need people willing to work with you, not against you." "Then I'll find new people. People who actually believe in what this company is supposed to do." Harrison rubbed his temples. "This is going to be a disaster." "It already is a disaster. We're just choosing which kind." Victoria pulled up the email from Sarah Chen and showed it to them. "This is what we're protecting. Not stock prices, not investor returns, people like this, hospitals like this, communities like this." Harrison read the email, then passed it to Patricia. She read it twice, her expression softening. "All right," Patricia said finally, "we do it your way. We cut everything except the mission. But Victoria, if this doesn't work, if we can't make the numbers add up, we're going to have some very hard conversations." "I know." The cuts started the next day. Victoria sent out a company-wide email explaining the situation. No sugarcoating, no corporate speak, just honest truth about where they were and what needed to happen. Executive salaries would be reduced by 30% across the board. Bonuses were suspended indefinitely. Non-essential travel was canceled. Marketing budget was slashed. Every department would undergo efficiency reviews. But the community programs would continue. The rural hospital contracts would be honored. The clean energy partnerships would expand. The response was mixed. Some employees were relieved, some were angry. The remaining executives were furious. 2 of them resigned within 24 hours. 3 others requested meetings to discuss concerns. Victoria met with each one individually, listened to their complaints, acknowledged their frustrations, and held firm. "This company was built on a promise," she told them. "I'm not breaking that promise to save a few percentage points on quarterly earnings." By Friday afternoon, 5 more executives had resigned. Victoria's phone was ringing constantly with board members expressing concern. The press was writing articles about corporate chaos and leadership crisis. The stock dropped another 4%. And through it all, Ryan kept showing up. Every morning at 7 with Ellie, sitting in Victoria's office, fielding calls, reviewing documents, offering quiet support when she felt like she was drowning. "Why are you still here?" Victoria asked him late Friday night. Everyone else had gone home. Even Jennifer had finally left after Victoria threatened to physically carry her to the elevator. Ryan was sitting on the floor, helping Ellie build a tower out of blocks. Where else would I be? Home, with your daughter, away from this mess. This is my mess, too. You didn't create it. Neither did you, but here we are. He placed another block on the tower. Ellie clapped when it stayed balanced. Besides, Ellie likes it here. Don't you, sweetheart? Margaret gave me cookies, Ellie announced. 3 of them. Margaret spoils you. That's what cookies are for. Ryan smiled, and Victoria felt something loosen in her chest. In the middle of everything falling apart, there was this. A 6-year-old building block towers. A father who'd given up anonymity to save his wife's legacy. A receptionist who gave extra cookies to a little girl who'd lost her mother. Small moments of humanity in the middle of corporate warfare. I got another email today, Victoria said, from a woman in Montana. She runs a community center that Nixora helped power. Said our partnership allowed them to offer free computer classes to kids who couldn't afford internet at home. 37 kids. That's how many we're helping in one tiny town in Montana. How many towns do we partner with? 83 across 14 states. Ryan was quiet for a moment. That's a lot of kids. Yeah. Victoria, I know this is hard. I know you're second-guessing everything, but you made the right choice. Did I? We've lost 1/3 of our market value. Half our executive team quit. Investors hate us. The press thinks we're incompetent, and we're one bad quarter away from real financial trouble. But we still have those 83 towns. Still have those kids learning computer skills. Still have hospitals keeping their lights on and patients getting care. That has to count for something. Does it count enough? I think Amelia would say yes. The mention of Amelia made Victoria's throat tight. You must miss her every day. Every minute of every day. Ryan's voice was soft, but Ellie makes it bearable. Watching her grow up, seeing pieces of Amelia in her laugh, her stubbornness, her weird obsession with butterflies. It hurts, but it also helps. Does that make sense? Yeah, it does. Ellie yawned, the kind of whole-body yawn that only small children manage. Daddy, I'm tired. I know, baby. Let's go home. Can we come back tomorrow? It's Saturday tomorrow. We're going to stay home and have a lazy day. But what about Victoria? Ryan glanced at Victoria. Victoria needs a break too, right? Victoria wanted to say no. Wanted to say she'd be here Saturday and Sunday and every day after because the company was barely holding together, and if she stopped working for even a minute, it might all collapse. But Ellie was looking at her with those serious eyes, and Victoria heard herself say, Right, I need a break. See? Ellie said to her father. She needs rest. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart, you just noticed. Ryan laughed and picked her up. Come on, wise one. Let's get you to bed. He paused at the door. Victoria, actually take the weekend off. Don't come in. Don't check email. Just rest. I can't. You can. The company survived today. It'll survive tomorrow. But you won't survive if you keep pushing like this. He left before she could argue. Victoria sat alone in her office, surrounded by evidence of everything that had gone wrong. But she thought about Sarah Chen in Indiana, about 37 kids in Montana, about 83 towns that still had power because Nixora had kept its promises. She thought about Ryan, who'd lost everything and still came back fighting. She thought about Ellie, building block towers in the middle of corporate chaos, completely unaware that her presence was the only thing keeping 2 exhausted adults from giving up entirely. And she made herself go home. Saturday morning, she woke up to her phone buzzing. Not a call. A text from Ryan. Don't check your email. Doctor's orders. She smiled and put the phone down. Spent the day doing absolutely nothing work-related. Went for a walk, read a book, cooked dinner, remembered what it felt like to be human instead of a machine designed to process crisis. Sunday evening, her phone rang. Ryan's number. I thought you said no work this weekend, Victoria answered. This isn't work. This is personal. Ryan sounded strange, tight. Can you come to my apartment? I need to show you something. Is everything okay? Just come, please. She went. Ryan's apartment was smaller than she expected. Not run down, but clearly the home of someone who'd chosen function over style. Toys scattered on the floor, kids' drawings on the refrigerator, a worn couch that had seen better days. Ellie ran up to her immediately. "Victoria, Daddy said you were coming." "Hi, Ellie. Want to see my room? I have a butterfly lamp." "Maybe later, sweetheart. Let me talk to your dad first." Ryan was standing in the kitchen, holding a manila envelope. He looked like he hadn't slept. "What's wrong?" Victoria asked. "I got this in the mail yesterday, from Victor's lawyer." Victoria's stomach dropped. "What is it?" "Lawsuit. Against me personally. Claiming I orchestrated a hostile takeover, that I manipulated the board, that I falsified evidence to destroy his career." Ryan's hands were shaking. He's suing for defamation, wrongful termination, and emotional distress. He wants $500 million. "That's insane. We have evidence, documentation. The FBI has confirmed." "Doesn't matter. This isn't about winning. This is about bleeding me dry with legal fees, tying me up in court for years, making sure I'm too distracted and broke to keep fighting." Victoria took the envelope and read through it. The lawsuit was comprehensive, vicious. It painted Ryan as an unstable, grieving widower who'd fabricated evidence out of paranoid delusion. It questioned his mental fitness. It suggested he was using his daughter as a prop to gain sympathy. "This is character assassination," Victoria said quietly. "I know. We can fight this. We will fight this." "With what money?" "I have assets, but most of them are tied up in Nexora stock, which is currently worth 30% less than it was a week ago. Victor knows that. He's betting I can't afford a prolonged legal battle." "Then we pool resources. The company will help cover legal costs. Victoria, the company can barely afford to keep the lights on right now. You can't take on my legal bills too." "Yes, I can. This is corporate business. Victor's attacking you because of actions you took as a board member. That makes it the company's responsibility." Ryan sat down heavily. "He's also threatening to go after Ellie. Not directly, but the lawsuit mentions her. Talks about how I've exposed her to traumatic corporate conflict, how I'm using her to manipulate public opinion. His lawyer is already reaching out to child welfare services, asking them to investigate whether I'm providing a stable home environment." Victoria felt rage burn through her exhaustion. "Can't do that." "He can, and he is, because he knows it'll hurt me more than anything else." Ryan's voice cracked. "I can handle the money, the lawsuits, the press, but if they try to take Ellie, they won't. We won't let them." "How? How do we stop this?" Victoria didn't have an answer. She sat down beside him, and they stayed there in silence while Ellie played in the next room, singing to herself, completely unaware that her world was about to get even more complicated. Finally, Victoria said, "We fight. That's all we can do. We fight with everything we have. We document everything. We cooperate with investigators. We show the world that Victor is the criminal, not you. We make his lawsuit look like exactly what it is, a desperate attempt to avoid accountability. And if we lose, we won't. But if we do," Victoria met his eyes, "then we lose together, and we figure out what comes next. But I'm not abandoning you, Ryan. You came back for this company, for Amelia's legacy. The least I can do is stand beside you when it gets hard." Ryan's eyes were wet. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just promise me something." "What?" "Promise me you won't give up, no matter how bad this gets, no matter what Victor throws at us. Promise me you'll keep fighting." "I promise." They sat there while the sun set outside, two people who'd been strangers a week ago, now bound together by a battle neither of them had asked for, but both refused to lose. In the next room, Ellie started singing a song about butterflies. Her voice was high and sweet and completely out of tune, and somehow, despite everything, that made it easier to believe they might actually survive this. Monday morning came too fast and felt too heavy. Victoria arrived at Nexora headquarters before dawn to find Margaret already at her desk, looking like she hadn't slept either. The older woman handed Victoria a coffee without a word, just a knowing look that said they were all running on fumes and determination now. "Anything I need to know before the chaos starts?" Victoria asked. 3 reporters camped outside since 5 a.m. Legal team wants an emergency meeting at 8, and someone left flowers at the memorial. Victoria paused. "What memorial?" "Come see." Margaret led her through the lobby to a corner near the main entrance. Someone had set up a small display, a photo of Amelia Mercer, surrounded by candles and flowers. Not the official corporate headshot that hung in the boardroom, but a candid shot of her laughing, hair messy, looking fully human. Beside it, employees had left notes. Victoria crouched down and read a few. "Thank you for believing small towns mattered. Riverside Hospital. My daughter has a future because of your vision, Sarah Chin. You taught us that profit without purpose is just greed. We won't forget." There were dozens of them, from employees, from communities, from people Amelia had never met but whose lives she'd touched anyway. "Who started this?" Victoria asked, her voice thick. "Margaret!" Ryan's voice came from behind her. She turned to find him standing there with Ellie, both of them looking at the memorial. "She did it Saturday. Said people needed somewhere to remember what this company used to stand for." Margaret wiped her eyes. "Amelia hired me when I was 58, and every other company said I was too old. She told me experience was worth more than youth any day. I never forgot that." Ellie tugged on Ryan's hand. "Daddy, is that Mommy?" Ryan knelt beside her. "Yeah, sweetheart, that's Mommy. She looks happy." She was happy, especially when she was working here, helping people. Ellie studied the photo seriously. Then she reached into her backpack and pulled out her stuffed rabbit, the same one she'd given to Victoria days ago, now returned. She placed it carefully next to Amelia's photo. "So Mommy isn't lonely," Ellie said simply. Ryan's face crumpled. He pulled Ellie into a hug, holding her tight while his shoulders shook. Victoria looked away, giving them privacy, but Margaret was crying openly now too. This was what Victor didn't understand, what Daniel never grasped. This wasn't just a company. It was people. Real people, with real lives and real grief and real hope that something they built might outlast them. The legal meeting at 8 was brutal. Victor's lawsuit was comprehensive and vicious, but what made it dangerous was how carefully it was constructed. His lawyers had found every ambiguity, every moment where Ryan's return could be painted as manipulation rather than intervention. The child welfare investigation is the real threat, their lead attorney, Marcus Webb, said. He was 60, experienced, and clearly exhausted by what he was reading. Victor's team is arguing that Ryan exposed his daughter to traumatic corporate conflict, that he brought her to board meetings, press conferences, and hostile confrontations, that he prioritized corporate revenge over her well-being. "That's insane," Victoria said. "Ryan brought Ellie because he's a single parent. What was he supposed to do? Leave her alone?" "That's our argument. But Victoria, the optics are bad. A 6-year-old at a press conference, in a boardroom during executive terminations, Victor's painting Ryan as an unstable father using his child as a shield." Ryan had gone very still. "What do I need to do?" "Cooperate with the investigation completely. Document Ellie's care. Show that she's in a stable, loving home. Get character witnesses. Maybe consider keeping her away from Nexora until this blows over." "No." Ryan's voice was flat. "Ryan, I understand you don't want to change your life because of Victor's accusations, but you don't understand. Ellie lost her mother. For 5 years, I've tried to give her stability, routine, a sense that even though her world fell apart, she still has one parent who shows up every day. If I suddenly keep her away from me, if I change everything because some lawyer threatens us, what does that teach her? That we back down when bullies attack? That family comes second to avoiding conflict?" Marcus sighed. "I'm not saying it's fair. I'm saying it's strategic. I don't care about strategy. I care about my daughter." Victoria leaned forward. "What if we flip this? What if instead of hiding Ellie, we show exactly why Ryan brought her? We document what a day looks like for a single father trying to save his company while raising a 6-year-old. We show that Ryan isn't using her as a shield. He's just trying to be present in her life while doing what's right." "That's risky," Marcus warned. "Any misstep gets weaponized." "Everything gets weaponized anyway. At least this way we control the narrative." They spent 2 hours planning their counter strategy. Ryan would cooperate fully with child services. Victoria would provide a formal statement about why the company supported Ryan's actions. They'd gather testimonials from employees, from communities, from everyone who'd benefited from Nexora's programs. But the biggest move would be transparency. They'd release everything, the evidence against Victor, the financial documents, the merger contracts, all of it. Turn the lawsuit into a public referendum on who was really protecting Nexora's mission. "This could backfire spectacularly," Marcus said. "Or it could end this," Victoria replied. "Victor's betting we'll stay quiet, that we'll be afraid of bad press. Let's prove him wrong. The press release went out Tuesday morning. Full disclosure, no corporate spin, just documented evidence of fraud, theft, and the attempted destruction of Amelia Mercer's legacy. The media response was immediate and overwhelming. Some outlets called it a desperate publicity stunt. Others called it corporate courage. The business channels ran endless panels of experts debating whether Victoria was brave or reckless. Social media exploded with opinions. But something else happened too. Employees started talking. Not just Nexora employees, employees from other companies who'd experienced similar corruption and stayed silent. People who'd watched executives steal and lie and destroy good companies from within. One woman posted a video that went viral. She was a former accountant who'd been fired for questioning fraudulent contracts at her company. "What Ryan Mercer did?" she said, tears streaming down her face. "That's what I wish I'd been brave enough to do. He came back, he fought, he didn't let them win. That matters." By Wednesday, the narrative was shifting. Victor's lawsuit started looking less like justice and more like retaliation. His lawyers released statements calling Ryan unstable, but every time they did, another community posted about how Nexora's programs had saved their hospital, their school, their town. Thursday afternoon, Victoria was in her office reviewing financial projections when Jennifer knocked urgently. "Ma'am, you need to see this." She pulled up a news stream, a press conference, but not theirs. Victor Kane stood in front of cameras, flanked by his lawyers, looking composed and righteous. "I didn't want it to come to this," Victor was saying. "I spent 15 years building Nexora Energy into a profitable, sustainable company. And I'm being accused of theft by a man who abandoned his responsibilities and then returned with fabricated evidence. This isn't about justice. It's about a grief-stricken individual who couldn't handle the loss of his wife and is now lashing out at everyone who kept his company alive in his absence." A reporter shouted a question. "What about the evidence? The bank statements? The shell companies?" "All of which will be proven false or misinterpreted when this reaches court. I have complete faith in the legal system, and I have complete confidence that the truth will prevail." Another reporter. "What about the merger? The contract clauses that would have terminated community programs?" Victor's expression hardened. Those clauses were standard corporate restructuring language. Every merger includes efficiency reviews. The fact that Ryan Mercer interpreted that as some kind of betrayal shows how disconnected he is from modern business practices. And the child welfare investigation? Your lawsuit claims Ryan Mercer is an unfit parent. I take no pleasure in that. But when someone brings a 6-year-old to hostile corporate confrontations, when he exposes her to media circuses and boardroom battles, someone has to speak up for that child's well-being. I'm simply ensuring she's protected. Victoria felt sick watching it. Victor was good. Too good. He sounded reasonable, concerned, like someone trying to protect both the company and a vulnerable child from an unstable father. Ryan appeared in her doorway. He'd been watching too. "He's winning," Ryan said quietly. "No, he's not." "Victoria, look at him. He sounds rational. I sound like a conspiracy theorist. He has lawyers and PR teams. I have a folder of documents that might be real or might be fabricated, depending on who you believe. The FBI believes them. The FBI hasn't charged him yet. Until they do, this is a he said, she said situation, and Victor's better at this game than I am." Victoria stood up. "Then we changed the game." "How?" She thought about Sarah Chen's email, about the memorial in the lobby, about 37 kids in Montana learning computer skills because Nexora had kept its promises. "We stopped fighting on his terms, stopped making this about corporate politics and legal battles. We make it about what it's always been about, people, real people whose lives depend on this company being more than just profitable." "I don't follow. Victor wants to discredit you personally. Fine, let him try. But he can't discredit 83 communities. He can't discredit hospitals and schools and families. We bring them here. We let them tell their stories. We show the world exactly what's at stake." Ryan stared at her. "That's insane." "Probably. But it might work." By Friday, they'd organized what the press was calling the most unconventional corporate defense in history. Nexora opened its doors to anyone from their community partner programs who wanted to come and share their experience. They came. Sarah Chen from Indiana, the hospital administrator who'd written that first email. She stood in Nixora's lobby and told reporters how their energy partnership had saved their emergency room, how 3 children were alive today because they'd been able to afford better equipment. A teacher from Montana talked about the kids who'd learned coding skills using Nixora-powered computers. One of those kids was now studying engineering at college, first in his family to go. A small business owner from Kentucky explained how Nixora's rural energy initiative had cut his costs enough to avoid bankruptcy. He now employed 12 people, story after story, person after person, all of them real, all of them documented, all of them willing to stand in front of cameras and say that Nixora's mission wasn't just corporate propaganda, it was their lives. Victor's lawyers called it a staged publicity stunt. But it was hard to call it staged when a 70-year-old woman with a walker showed up and cried while explaining that her dialysis clinic stayed open because of Nixora's hospital partnership. The tide turned slowly, then all at once. By the following Tuesday, 3 major news outlets had run investigative pieces on Victor's offshore accounts. The FBI announced they were expanding their investigation. 2 of Victor's own lawyers quietly withdrew from the case. And the child welfare investigation? Closed after a single home visit where the social worker found a 6-year-old living in a modest but loving apartment, well-fed, well-cared for, surrounded by butterfly drawings and stuffed animals, and a father who clearly adored her. Case closed, the social worker told Ryan. Your daughter is happy and healthy. Whoever reported concerns was either misinformed or malicious. Ryan cried when he got the news. Not quiet tears, full, shoulder-shaking sobs of relief. Victoria was there when he found out, and she hugged him while he fell apart. This man who'd held himself together through corporate warfare and public humiliation, but couldn't handle the fear of losing his daughter. It's over, she told him. That part's over. What about the rest? We keep fighting, but we're winning, Ryan. Slowly, messily, but we're winning. The lawsuit dragged on for another 6 weeks, but Victor's position grew weaker daily. The evidence was overwhelming. The FBI's investigation confirmed everything Ryan had claimed. Former Nixora employees came forward with testimonies about intimidation and falsified reports. In the end, Victor's lawyers negotiated a settlement. He dropped all charges against Ryan in exchange for Nixora dropping its countersuit. He paid back a fraction of what he'd stolen and agreed to never work in corporate leadership again. Daniel Ross took a plea deal, turned state's evidence in exchange for reduced charges. He'd spend 2 years in minimum security and forfeit everything he'd gained from the fraud. It wasn't perfect justice. Victoria wanted them both in prison for decades, but Marcus explained that perfect justice didn't exist in corporate crime. This was as good as it got. The company's recovery was slower and harder than anyone wanted. The stock eventually stabilized, but 30% below where it started. Some investors never came back. Some executives never returned. The company that emerged from the scandal was smaller, leaner, and significantly humbler than the one that had entered it. But it was also more honest. Victoria cut her own salary by 40% and tied executive compensation to community impact metrics, not just profit. She created an employee oversight board that could raise concerns directly to leadership. She instituted quarterly public transparency reports showing exactly where money went. Some business analysts called it corporate suicide. Others called it the future of ethical leadership. Victoria called it keeping promises. 3 months after Victor's lawsuit was dropped, Ryan called a board meeting. Not an emergency meeting this time, a planned one, with agenda items and proper notice. Victoria sat next to him, watching board members file in. They looked different now. Less polished, more worn, but somehow more real, like they'd all aged a decade in 3 months and decided that was acceptable. I'm resigning from the board, Ryan announced once everyone was seated. The room went silent. Why? Patricia asked. Because my daughter is starting first grade in 2 weeks, and I want to be the kind of father who shows up to parent-teacher conferences and school plays and soccer games without worrying about quarterly earnings calls. Ryan smiled. I've spent 3 months fighting for this company. Now I need to fight for the life I promised Ellie we'd have. But what about Nixora? Harrison asked. What about oversight? Making sure we don't slide back into corruption. I'm not leaving completely. I'll maintain my shares. I'll stay available for consultation. But I won't be on the board. I won't be in strategy meetings. I'm going back to being what I should have been all along, a father who built something good and trusts other people to keep it that way. He looked at Victoria. I trust you to keep it that way. Victoria felt her throat tighten. I'll do my best. I know you will. That's why I can leave. The vote to accept his resignation was unanimous. After the meeting, board members came up to shake Ryan's hand, thank him, wish him well. Patricia hugged him. Harrison, who Victoria had never seen show emotion, had tears in his eyes. When everyone else had left, Victoria and Ryan stood alone in the boardroom. You're really leaving, she said. I'm really leaving. I'm going to miss having you here. I'm not disappearing. I'm just going to be the annoying shareholder who sends concerned emails instead of the exhausted board member who looks like death. Victoria laughed. Fair enough. They stood there for a moment, two people who'd been thrown together by crisis and had somehow become something like friends. Thank you, Ryan said quietly, for believing me, for fighting, for not taking the easy way out. Thank you for coming back, for trusting me with the evidence, for reminding me why this company matters. We did good, didn't we? Yeah, we did good. Ryan picked up his briefcase, the same worn bag he'd been carrying since that first day in the lobby. Ellie wants to know if you'll come to her birthday party next month. It's a butterfly theme. Very serious business. I wouldn't miss it. Good. Because she's been practicing her hosting skills, and I think she's going to make everyone play Pin the Wings on the Butterfly for like 3 hours straight. Sounds perfect. Ryan walked toward the door, then paused. Victoria, one more thing. Yeah? Amelia would have liked you. I know I've said that before, but I mean it. She would have been proud of what you did here, how you fought for her vision even when it cost you everything. Victoria's eyes burned. I wish I could have met her. Me too. Ryan smiled sadly. But in a way, you did. Every time you chose people over profit, every time you kept a promise to a community nobody else cared about, every time you refused to let this company become just another corporation. That was Amelia. That was her legacy. And you protected it. He left before Victoria could respond. She stood alone in the boardroom looking out at Chicago. The city spread below her, millions of people living their lives, completely unaware that a small energy company had spent 3 months fighting for its soul. Her phone buzzed. An email from Sarah Chen. Just wanted to let you know we're expanding our emergency room. Because of you, we can afford it. 20 more beds, more lives saved. Thank you for not giving up on us. Victoria smiled and closed her laptop. The next few months passed in something that felt almost like peace. The company didn't return to its pre-scandal glory. Probably never would. But it found a different kind of success. Quieter, steadier, built on relationships instead of stock prices. More communities reached out for partnerships. More employees started speaking up about problems instead of hiding them. More executives joined who actually believed in the mission instead of just tolerating it for career advancement. Victoria worked long hours, but not desperate ones. She slept, ate real food, occasionally took weekends off, remembered what it felt like to be a person instead of a crisis response machine. And every few weeks she'd get an email from Ryan, updates about Ellie's first-grade adventures, photos of father-daughter science projects, complaints about how hard it was to braid hair for ballet recitals. Normal life stuff. The kind of life he'd put on hold to save his wife's company. On the 6-month anniversary of Victor's termination, Victoria organized a small ceremony in the lobby. Not a celebration, that felt wrong when so much had been lost, but a remembrance. They unveiled a permanent memorial to Amelia Mercer. Not a corporate plaque with formal language, but a real tribute with her photo, her words, and a simple inscription. She believed everyone deserved power, both the electrical kind and the human kind. Employees gathered, some who'd worked with Amelia directly, most who'd only heard stories, all of them who'd chosen to stay with Nixora even when it would have been easier to leave. Ryan came with Ellie. She was taller now, missing a front tooth, carrying a new backpack covered in monarchs instead of butterflies. Daddy, that's Mommy's memorial, Ellie said, reading the inscription slowly. Yeah, sweetheart, what do you think? I think she would have liked it. It sounds like her. How do you know what she sounded like? Because you tell me stories. And because Victoria sounds like what you say, Mommy sounded like when she talked about helping people. Ryan and Victoria exchanged glances. Victoria felt her eyes burn. That's a really smart observation, Ellie Bell, Ryan said. I know. I'm in the advanced reading group now. The ceremony was short. Victoria said a few words about Amelia's vision. Richard told a story about the early days of Nixora, when Amelia had convinced a skeptical bank to fund their first community project by bringing in actual community members to testify. Margaret read names of all 83 partner communities. It took 15 minutes. Nobody got impatient. Afterward, people lingered, shared memories. A few employees who'd never met Amelia listened to the stories and understood, maybe for the first time, why this company was worth fighting for. Ryan found Victoria by the memorial. "She really would have liked you," he said again. "You keep saying that." "Because it keeps being true." He paused. "I got an email yesterday from a venture capital firm. They want to invest in Nixora. Significant money. They're specifically interested because of our community programs." "What did you tell them?" "I told them to contact you. You're the CEO. But Victoria, this could be the cash flow solution we've been looking for. Enough to expand the programs, maybe even restore some of what we had to cut." Victoria thought about it. "Are they good people?" "Define good. Do they care about the mission or just the returns?" "Both, I think, but they seem to understand that one depends on the other." "Then I'll take the meeting, but carefully. No more blind trust in people just because they say the right things." "Agreed." They stood there watching Ellie, who was now showing another little girl her butterfly backpack, explaining in serious detail why monarchs were superior to all other butterfly species. "She's happy," Victoria observed. "Yeah, finally. It took a while, but she's happy." Ryan's voice was soft. "Some nights she still has bad dreams about her mom. Some days she asks questions I don't know how to answer. But mostly, she's just a kid who likes butterflies and hates broccoli and thinks multiplication is a conspiracy against first graders." "That sounds perfect." "It is. It really is." Victoria's phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. "Board meeting moved to Thursday. New investor presentation. This could be big." She showed it to Ryan. He smiled. "Go make Amelia proud," he said. "I think we already did." The meeting with the venture capital firm happened 2 weeks later. They were younger than Victoria expected, more idealistic than most investors, and genuinely interested in proving that profitable companies could also be ethical ones. The deal they proposed was fair. Money for expansion in exchange for a minority stake and quarterly impact reports. They didn't want to change Nixora's mission. They wanted to amplify it. Victoria negotiated hard anyway, made sure the contract protected community programs, made sure no single investor could override the board, made sure Nixora's soul wasn't for sale, even to well-meaning buyers. The final agreement took 6 weeks to hammer out. When it was signed, Nixora had enough capital to restore every program that had been cut, expand into 12 new communities, and increase salaries for employees who'd taken pay cuts during the crisis. The stock started climbing. Slowly at first, then faster. Investors who'd fled during the scandal started quietly returning. The press wrote articles about the company that chose ethics and survived. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. Companies didn't get those. There were still hard days, still difficult decisions, still moments when Victoria questioned whether she was doing enough, doing it right, doing what Amelia would have wanted. But there were also emails from communities saying thank you, employees who felt heard, board meetings where people asked about impact before profit, small victories that added up to something that felt like redemption. One evening, almost a year after that first day in the lobby, Victoria stood in her office looking out at the city. The same view she'd had when all of this started, but everything felt different now. Her phone rang. "Ryan." "Hey," she answered. "Hey, quick question. Ellie's school is doing a career day thing. She wants to know if you'd come talk about being a CEO. She wants me to talk to first graders about corporate leadership. She wants you to talk about how you help people." Those are her words, not mine. Victoria smiled. "Tell her I'd be honored." "Good. Fair warning. She's planning to introduce you as Daddy's friend who saved Mommy's company. I tried to explain that it's more complicated than that, but she's 6 and she likes simple stories." "Simple stories are good sometimes." Yeah, they are." After they hung up, Victoria stayed at her window for a while longer. She thought about everything that had happened, the fraud, the fighting, the fear that it would all collapse. The way Ryan had walked into a lobby looking nothing like a billionaire and everything like a father who'd run out of options but not out of hope. The way Ellie had asked, "Daddy, why do they hate us?" and changed everything with one innocent question. The way corporations were made of people with real lives and real consequences when leadership forgot that simple truth. She thought about Amelia Mercer, who she'd never met, but who felt present in every decision Victoria made now. A woman who'd believed that business could be more than quarterly earnings, that profit without purpose was just greed dressed up in corporate language. And she thought about the emails she still got sometimes, from Sarah in Indiana, from teachers in Montana, from business owners and hospital administrators, and parents whose children had opportunities because one company had decided to keep its promises even when it cost everything. Maybe that was the real lesson. Not that good always won, or that justice always prevailed, or that fighting corruption always worked out cleanly. The lesson was simpler and harder than that. Sometimes doing the right thing cost you everything. Sometimes it meant sleepless nights and falling stock prices and lawsuits from people who wanted you destroyed. Sometimes it meant risking your career, your reputation, your sense of security. But sometimes, not always, but sometimes, it also meant looking at yourself in the mirror and knowing you hadn't looked away when it mattered. That you'd chosen people over convenience, that you'd protected something worth protecting. And in those moments, the cost felt bearable. Victoria picked up her phone and sent a text to Ryan. "Thank Ellie for the invitation. Tell her I'm proud to be her daddy's friend, and tell her that her mommy's company is safe. It's messy and imperfect and still figuring things out, but it's safe." His response came quickly. "She says you're welcome, and can you bring butterfly cookies to career day because regular cookies are boring?" Victoria laughed out loud in her empty office. "Tell her I'll bring the best butterfly cookies she's ever seen." She closed her laptop, turned off the lights, and went home. Tomorrow there would be more meetings, more decisions, more challenges to face. But tonight, she was going to sleep soundly, knowing that sometimes the hardest battles were the ones most worth fighting. And sometimes, just sometimes, single fathers in worn coats and 6-year-olds with butterfly backpacks could walk into a corporate headquarters and remind everyone inside that companies weren't just made of money and stock prices. They were made of people. Imperfect, stubborn, beautiful people trying to build something that mattered. And that was enough. That had always been enough.